Me and Pastor Dustin, we're both doing a series called Deep Cuts, Forgotten Stories is the subtitles. If you don't know what deep cuts are, which we were kind of discussing this and we're really excited about this, about the graphic and about the series and the title and everything. And then we started talking to some younger people and they're like, I don't know what a deep cut is. Like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, which immediately made me feel old, but that's okay. I felt really old. How many of you guys know spicy Uno? So it's a thing, apparently. I was trying to play Uno with these girls and they're like, oh no, this is spicy Uno. And I swear they're just making up rules as we go. They're like, no, a 7 means you can't talk. A 6 means you got to hit the table. Just weird stuff that and like if anyone can lay down a card if it matches I don't know. It was very confusing. And I felt very old because I was very good at original Uno back in my day. But apparently kids these days, that's what old people say, kids these days play spicy Uno. And I don't know. But apparently kids these days also don't know about deep cuts because what you guys do, and I'm not saying all of you, some of you don't, but you listen to individual songs on a playlist. You don't actually like get the album and like listen to all of the tracks. So a deep cut, so everybody knows what a hit is, right? Like the hit songs, usually an album, if it's really good, like Michael Jackson's Thriller had like 6 or 7 like radio hits, just like one of the best albums ever made. And those are all like hits. But the ones that don't make it as hits, the ones that people might not know about, are like the deep cuts that are like, they're really good if you know it. Usually you have to like know an artist pretty well to know like they're real good deep cuts. So actually Pastor Dustin we were talking about this and he was like, let's do a series on this, but let's do Bible stories that people might not know about, or maybe you heard in the past, but you kind of forgot. Last week I talked about Zacchaeus and the tree, which is one that I think is fairly common. That's not that deep of a cut, but you probably haven't heard it since you were a little kid. We even sang the song, Great Object Lesson. We had Roger up here on a ladder pretending to be Zacchaeus. Kenny was Jesus, walked past. It was a whole great production. You guys should watch it on YouTube if you guys missed it. It was really, really powerful stuff last week. This week, I'm going even deeper. I'm not going to talk long because we do have a bonfire to get to, and I want to make sure we get plenty of time for that. But this one, I'm talking about 2 Kings 5, 1 through 15. There was a man named Naaman. So this is a much deeper cut. How many of you guys know the story of Naaman? 1, 2. We got a couple of good church kids here. All right. Story of Naaman. And this was a very genuine, like it came up. I was reading the Old Testament. I'm trying to read through the whole Bible. It's taking a long time. It's a long book. But I got in 2 Kings a while back and read the story of Naaman. And I was like, why don't I know this story? Like, this is good. So I'm going to tell you the story of Naaman, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. But again, pretty briefly, trying to fly through it quick. If I'm too fast and you can't keep up and catch notes, it'll be on YouTube later so you can watch it afterward. Or you can talk to me afterward, and we'll talk and make sure you get everything you need from this. But let's talk about the story of Naaman, okay? 2 Kings 5, 1 through 15. Now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. So just a real quick side note, you can accomplish a lot of things in life. You can be doing very well, successful in life, but sometimes there's still stuff that maybe we're trying to hide, or maybe you just, sometimes there's things in your life. Not everything goes perfect for you, right? I think some of us tend to, I grew up in this church, but we think like, oh, everything's just going to be perfect because I said a prayer, the Lord's my Savior, everything's going to be great. He did get a lot of victories, but he also had this leprosy thing to deal with. All right, verse 2, and the Syrians had gone out on raids and had brought back a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Next verse. Then she said to her mistress, if only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy. Verse 4. And Naaman went in and told his master, saying, thus and thus, which I love, I'm going to use that now, instead of just be like thus and thus. Like if it's too long, you're thus and thus, yeah. Like when you're telling a story, you just got to skip over some stuff, thus and thus. Which I like that, because sometimes people just repeat the same, which my wife's probably listening. Sometimes I do that. I repeat the same stories like she's heard it before, like thus and thus. Thus and thus said the girl who is from the land of Israel. So the girl from the land of Israel told told her master to tell Naaman about this prophet in Israel that could heal him. So first of all, God's bigger than we think, right? Like, I like to think I'm pretty familiar with the Bible, with Bible stories. Grew up in the church, went to Sunday school, had the little felt boards. So you guys still do felt boards? Probably use some kind of like more technology, watch videos and stuff. But the felt boards, man, those just hit different. There's something different about any of the volunteers remember felt boards? Trish, Caleb, you had felt boards? No? Yeah? Yeah. So the felt boards are just different. But I remember in all of the Old Testament, what I remember was it was all like the Israelites, right? God was helping the Israelites, working with the Israelites. This guy was not an Israelite, but the Lord was with him. So it just kind of made me think a little bit like, and it said the Lord helped him win these battles. So it just kind of, I don't know, mind shift a little bit. I feel like sometimes we like to think, oh, we as Christians are over here, and then those people are not Christians, they're over there. Or maybe they are Christians, but you think certain things about them because you don't know. God can still use them, and God can still use you, right? Maybe you think you're not good enough. You're not the chosen people for God to use. God can still use you, right? God was absolutely using Naaman to win these battles. The other thing from these verses is that you can learn from the example of this Israelite woman who was taken captive, right? But still brought God with her into that captivity. And she heard an opportunity to tell someone about Jesus, about God, and she did, right? So I just want to give you a little encouragement and encourage you to bring God with you everywhere you go. It's great to come to church here, and we sing songs, and we worship, and we talk about God, and hopefully you guys talk with each other, make connection, community, everything, that's great. But bring it outside of church too. Bring God with you at your job, at your school, family, friends, wherever that is, and be actively looking for opportunities to talk about God, to share the goodness of God with your friends, family, coworkers, whatever. Because I promise you, if you look for opportunities and you ask God to give you opportunities, they're going to show up. God's not going to just leave you like, oh no, I'm not going to help you out. But a pastor actually at our church in San Diego, when we lived in San Diego, he used to say every morning he would pray for God to, 1, show me someone you want me to talk to, 2, give me the words to say. That's something you could pray every single morning. Now, he's an extrovert and loves talking to people. I'm a little bit introverted and maybe don't want to talk to somebody every day. But it's a good thing, right, to look for those opportunities, because I promise you, you look for opportunities to share about the goodness of God, they'll come up. They don't necessarily have to be, somebody saying, hey, preach me the gospel real quick, but it's just an opportunity. Her master was sick, and she said, hey, you know what? I know somebody who can heal you. All right, let's keep going. Verse 5, put that up. Then the king of Syria said, go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. So he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, which seems like a lot. I don't know how big a shekel is, and 10 changes of clothing. Then he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which said, now be advised. Sounds very official from a king. When this letter comes to you, that I have sent Naaman, my servant, to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy. Verse 7, and it happened when the king of Israel read the letter that he tore his clothes and said, am I God to kill and make alive? That this man sends a man to me to heal him of his leprosy. Therefore, please consider how he seeks a quarrel with me. So this dude was so mad that he tore his clothes because he was like, I'm not going to be the one to heal him. I can't do that. I don't have that power. Didn't even think about God can do it, right? So that's kind of my next point here, is that you're not the one that has to do it. God will take care of that. Like, I was reading a commentary about this, like, it's almost comical how much this king overreacts about this healing. Like, doesn't he know that God can do that? But he puts it all on himself. So a lot of times, we maybe don't want to pray for people, or we don't want to talk to people because we don't know the right things to say. So we're nervous about it, so we don't go talk to anybody. But like I said, Pastor Miles, he prayed not only that God would give him opportunities, but that God would tell him what to say. So if you put yourself in a situation, again, where you step out and talk to somebody about God, God's not going to leave you there. He's absolutely going to give you the words to say. He's going to help you. If you're praying for somebody and you're like, because I know can't be the only one that does this, you're like afraid to pray for somebody because what if they don't get healed? What if it doesn't happen? Well, it's not on you, right? It's not on you. Your job is to just do what God tells you to do. Pray for them and it's on God. But this king obviously forgot that, right? He almost ruined the whole thing. Naaman almost didn't get his healing because this king just like tore his clothes and was like, no, I can't do it. And this whole story, that could have been the end of the story, right? Except for next verse. So it was when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he sent to the king saying, why have you torn your clothes? That seems stupid. Please let him come to me, that he shall know there is a prophet in Israel. So if it wasn't that Elisha had heard him, that would have been the end of the story. Naaman never would have got his healing because the king tried to put it all on himself. Are there times in our life, I know for me personally, I do stupid stuff because I put it on myself, and I forget that God's supposed to help me through it. And I try to do it myself, and it doesn't happen, and who knows what could have happened if I would have just trusted God, right? So then Naaman went in with his horses and chariots, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elijah sent a messenger to him saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and you shall be clean. But Naaman became furious, like another angry person for no reason. And he went away and said, indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord, his God, and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy. Next verse. And not I should have studied this better. Abana and the Pharpar? That sounds wrong, but we'll go with it. The rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel. Could I not go wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage. So he was so mad because God didn't heal him the way he wanted to be healed, or the way he expected to be healed. I could tell you so many times in my life, opportunities that I thought I was gonna make happen, or I thought God was gonna do it this way, and it just didn't happen. You know how frustrating that is, right? We read these stories in the past, or maybe you hear a sermon from me or Pastor Dustin about how God works this way or another way, and then we try the same thing and it doesn't happen for us and we get mad. But God rarely moves how you expect him to move. And I think that's something that I think we as Christians, especially, Word of Faith Christians, we believe the power of expectation. We expect God to move, right? When you come to service, you should be expecting. If you're coming to camp, you should absolutely expect God to move. And I think God meets you with your expectation. But a lot of us, what we do is we kind of put this expectation on God to move a certain way. And then when he doesn't, we get upset. And again, Naaman almost didn't get his healing. Spoiler alert. We'll get to it. But because he was mad that God didn't work the way that he wanted him to work. And he said, what is this river, Jordan River? We got better water in Damascus, right? But it's not really about the water, okay? Let's go to the next verse. And his servants came near and spoke to him and said, my father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more when he says to you, wash and be clean? And he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of little children, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God and his aides and came and stood before him and said, indeed now I know that there's no God in all the earth except in Israel. Now therefore, please take it. Okay. He tries to offer him money, and Elisha says no for the healing, right? But listen to what happened. When God didn't move the way he expected him to, he got mad, but then he had people in his life that could encourage him and lift him up. Pastor Dustin talked on Sunday about, maybe it's a couple Sundays ago, about the importance of being able to build yourself up, encourage yourself when things are down. Because there's absolutely going to be times when you don't have people in your life that can do that for you. But this to me shows the importance of who you surround yourself with. Because if for whatever reason expectations aren't met and you're disappointed, if you go to the wrong people, it's going to absolutely tear you down. But if you have people in your life, and I'm hoping that in this room you find people, right? Even if you're not sitting by people right now, if you find some people in this space, and that's why we create opportunities for you to get to know each other. Said last week, learn people's names. Come talk to me if you need some encouragement, if you need somebody in your life. Talk to some of the leaders that we have. They're great encouragers. It's so important on who you go to. Now I can tell the whole story, but I had some friends that went through a bad situation. All of them experienced kind of the same thing, and I watched as the people who had solid people in their lives actually allowed this situation to bring them closer to God. And I watched some people completely turn away because they didn't have the strong support system. So I'm telling you, it's a very real thing. Be careful on who you surround yourself with, right? I talked about last week, Jesus absolutely ate dinner with the sinners, right? But he was constantly surrounded with the 12. Naaman had somebody in his life, thankfully, who encouraged him. And then when he did, and convinced Naaman, okay, I'll give this a try, even though I don't trust this maybe as well as I should, he still went back and did it, and he still got his healing. And I want to give that encouragement to anybody who maybe thinks like they've missed God in an area or another, or they tried to rush a process, or they didn't like the way God did it, so they're disappointed. Try it again. Try what God told you to do, because God is absolutely bigger than our mistakes. He will absolutely redeem. His plan is so much bigger than your mistakes, and he will redeem them. If you go back and do what God told you to do, he'll get you your healing, right? Yes, it's better, obviously, to obey the first time, but even if you don't, even if it takes a friend kind of forcing you and you kind of do it reluctantly, obey God. Do what God's telling you to do and allow him to move in your life. So my title of this message was going to be, it's not really about the water, because it wasn't really about the water that Naaman went into, whether it was the Jordan or what he thought were better rivers over here. Really wasn't about the water, it's about the obedience. It was about him doing what God told him to do. And God could have set him in any water, God could have said no water, whatever, but God put him in that water. So I was gonna call this, there's something in the water, it's not really about the water, but it's not as catchy of a title, I was told. So my title is, There's Something in the Water, because if you go to the right place, there's gonna be something there for you. But it's not really about the water, because it's about the obedience to God. And even if it's delayed obedience, it's better than no obedience, right? I'm also gonna take some time here to talk about baptism. We have baptisms coming up next week, and he wasn't technically baptized, but he was in the water. So if you can follow this train of thought a little bit. I asked Daniel to come up. If you guys know Daniel, obviously he was just up here singing. But just to share a little bit about he got baptized last summer. I'll let him share the story if you want to come up. Just real quick, because I want you guys to hear from him. You gotta come up on stage. So just tell a little bit about, you got baptized last summer. Why'd you make that decision?
Sure, okay. So, hi, I'm Daniel. No, you can stay in here, keep me company, ease my nerves. But, moral support. Yeah, okay. I have notes here. I'm gonna try my best not to look at them, because I'm better than that. He had to use his. Not good. So anyways, I did not grow up in this church. This is my second church. I went to a different one before. I was there for 20 years. I'm 25, a quarter of a century. Okay, and when I was there, I lived a life that was very similar to you guys, I think, where I was in church every single week, twice a week. I was always there. I played traveling basketball, and I remember. My friends used to make all their games. So I maybe back up a little bit. So the tournaments were always on weekends, right? And so you'd have 2 games on Saturday, 1 game on Sunday. Never made a Sunday game. My parents were like, no, you're gonna be in church. Sit in the pew. You're not playing on Sundays. And my teammates did not appreciate that. Of course not. But I had friends that were also playing basketball, and they got to make all their games. So I was like, what's the deal? I was in church, like I said, all the time. My parents basically closed the place down. We were always, it's okay, it's 2:30. Why are we still here? I didn't dislike going to church, but I had, at that point, when it's 2:30, all your friends are gone. So I'm just sitting there okay, can you stop talking now? But yeah, but as much time as I spent in church, I knew the Bible, I knew the word, I knew all that stuff. But there's a difference between knowing it and knowing it. You know what I'm saying? And it was all just knowledge, and I thought it was just cool, whatever. Me and God were cool, and that's it. But I never really had. You guys are really fortunate. I never had an experience with God, and so the Bible wasn't really real to me. So, fast forward, I graduate high school. I go off to college. Now, do you know a thing or two about college? Is that you don't have anybody telling you what you have to do. You get to do whatever you want to. And boy, did I do whatever I wanted to, okay? I was doing a lot of things. I wouldn't call myself a partier, but I did do some partying, okay? I did partake, all right? I did a little drinking, all right? I did a little smoking. Okay, we're getting kind of mature, okay? So this is like not, I don't know. Some of you, look at you, like can't even keep a straight face. I'm sorry. But it's true, it's true. You look at me and you're like, oh, he smoked weed? Chris, is that a weed? Yeah, that was me. I did that. I used to use it to go to sleep. It was not good. I was depressed. I went to therapy. I went like 3 or 4 sessions to therapy, and my therapist was like, you should take antidepressants, and you can like get them for free, and you don't have to tell your parents about it. And I was like, not my drug of choice, okay? That's true. I'm just being honest. I'm trying to, this is my testimony, okay? The truth is that that's what I did. But I'm different now. Anyways, so yeah, I did that, and it wasn't good. I was very depressed. I remember feeling like I was in, like, what I told her was like I was in stasis. Like, it felt like everything was passing me by, and I'd had like no control or no agency over my life. I was just really in a bad way. So fast forward, we're in the 4th year of college. This is in 2020. Okay, what happened in 2020? It starts with a P, okay? And it's an pandemic. And everybody is like, where are we? Spring break. And I don't have Cabo money, but a lot of kids did, so I was still on campus. I didn't like go to Cozumel or something. And they were like, I got an email, it's like Tuesday. They're like, if you're on campus, go home, and if you're off campus, don't come back. Finish the semester at home. And so once I was at home, I was like, I don't know how to explain it, but when you're in college, like, at least particularly my college, some of you guys are going to like Christian colleges, you probably won't experience this. But the college that I was at, like, you're in this environment where they're constantly like feeding you certain ways of thinking. And when you're not there anymore, I was like finally able to really like take a look at my life and assess it honestly for like, I hate my life. I hate who I've become. Like, I'm just not this person. I don't know what's going on. And then I had this little thought in the back of my head, like, oh, maybe I should try the Bible. Like, this whole thing that I just ignored for the past 4 years, what happened to that? And, I tried doing things my own way. Anyway, so I crack open the old book, blow the dust off, and I come across these verses. We're in 1 Corinthians. I'm reading the Shakespeare version, okay? It's 1 Corinthians 6:9. It says, do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom? Oh, I'm like reading this, okay? So I'm like in my closet. Imagine me in my closet on the floor, because that's what I do when I need to like get right, do my work with God, okay? I'm in the closet. So if you ever ask me to pray for you, you can imagine me on the floor in the closet. That's what I do. Do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived. Don't get it twisted. Neither fornicators did that, nor idolaters did that, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards did that, nor revilers did that, nor extortioners will inherit the kingdom of God. So I read all that, and I'm like, oop, that's me, whoops. And I was feeling like, okay, like God, obviously like correction never feels good, but there's something about it's something about hearing the truth when you know it's the truth, and it was just like comfort in that, you know what I'm saying? Like, even though I was doing stuff, and even if my actions weren't aligning with what I knew to be true, like just hearing somebody tell me what I already knew felt good. Because I just spent 4 years with people telling me that the way that I was living was like the right way to live, and it should be like celebrated, So I was like, okay, like finally, like somebody is telling me, like speaking, truth to me, and not just like lying. And I was like feeling, like my heart was like a million pieces. And I'm like, okay, even if it's true that I don't inherit the kingdom of God, then fine. Like, I'll just take that. I'm okay with that because I know that I deserve it, and that just is what it is. But check verse 11 out. It says, and such were some of you, but you're washed, you're sanctified, and you're justified in the name of the Lord Jesus and by the Spirit of our God. And when I read that, let me tell you, I just like started bawling. I was just crying my eyes out because I was like, after all these things that were listed there, things that I had done, it was like, you still love me after that? Like, what kind of God is this? Like, sometimes I think about the love of God, and it's like, this is just ridiculous. Like, why? How are you this kind of person where you can just list a whole bunch of terrible things and then be like, but it's okay, I love you anyway. It just doesn't make sense, and I don't deserve it, but that's the kind of God we serve, right? And that was the first time that I really experienced like the love of God in a tangible way. After 22 years of being a Christian, and I'd never experienced God until like that moment. And I felt the love of God just like envelop me like a blanket, and I was like, whoa, this is really different. So that song we sang, I never know a love like yours. Like, I really didn't know a love like God's until that moment. So anyway, where was I? That was like 2020. So I got baptized last year? Okay, well, I don't know what happened between 2020 and 2021, but when they had baptisms in 22, I was like, I want to get baptized. And I had already gotten baptized when I was like 8. I thought it was cool to like put on a swimsuit and get in the pool, and, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. But yeah, I wanted to do it again because I felt like I wanted what I did to reflect who I was now, like as a different person, as a changed person. I didn't know a whole bunch of scriptures on baptism, and I still don't. I'm relying on Josh to do that when he closes. I don't have any scriptures for you. And at the time, I didn't. Like, I didn't really know what it was. And so, I mean, I don't expect that many or any of you have a story anywhere near mine, right? But if you feel like, hey, like, I'm different now. Like, I went to camp, I had an experience with God, and I know that I'm changed, then you could get baptized as like to commemorate that. Or maybe like you want freedom from something. You can get baptized by faith. You can say, hey, I'm leaving who I am in the water, and I'm like, when I come back up, I'm going to be somebody different. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's already happened to you, but you can say, this is what's going to happen to me, so I'm going to go ahead and get baptized, and that's going to show that. So yeah, that's what I would just encourage you to do is, if you want to check out the verses for it, please look it up because I don't have them. But baptism reflected an inward change for me outwardly. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right, I do have some notes and some scriptures and some things, but I want to go quickly because I did promise that we'd get it done so we can go to the bonfire, play 9 Square and everything out there. But essentially, baptism, as Daniel was talking about, he was baptized as a child. I was Catholic when I was born, so I got sprinkled, right? But baptism is not the way into heaven, right? We don't believe baptism is salvation. You are saved by grace, not by works. There's nothing you can do to earn that. So baptism is not a salvation thing, but as Daniel said, it's an outward expression of the inward change, right? It's the dying to your old man, right? Like Jesus was buried, bring you under the water, and then come back up into new life. And maybe it is some stuff in your past that you want to leave in the water. Maybe it is a launching of a new season, right? We see when Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist that Jesus wasn't washing away sins, right? We know that he was perfect. But this was the moment that God launched Jesus into ministry, right? He didn't perform a miracle until after he was baptized by John the Baptist. So it is a powerful thing. It's not a necessity for salvation. We know that because we are saved by grace, but we also know that because of one example. There's a lot of examples, but the thief on the cross, right? When Jesus was dying on the cross, the thief said to him, all he said was, when you build your kingdom, will you remember me? And Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise. So we know that's what it is. There's not a secret magic code you got to say. You don't have to say the prayer perfectly right to get into heaven. You don't have to be baptized. You don't have to do these things. But baptism is one of 2 things that Jesus left for the church to do. Again, not salvation issues, right? You're saved if you believe on God, if you confess him as your Lord. But baptism and communion are 2 things that Jesus left to the church to observe still. So baptism is still something we do. And so I just want to encourage you guys that if you haven't been baptized yet, and you're saved, you believe in Jesus as your Lord, and you want to express that outwardly, then be a part of baptisms on Sunday. Again, sign up or just come talk to one of us or just come ready to get dunked on Sunday. But also, if you, maybe your story's hopefully not as extreme as Daniel's. Daniel went through some stuff in college, but if it was and you want to kind of come back and you want to show that, or as Daniel said, if you want to do it in faith, if you believe you got a new season coming up and you want to get things right, you want this to be kind of a moment for you, a critical moment, a moment you can look back on and as maybe a launch into your new season, then I highly recommend you get baptized. Plenty of examples. I'm not going to go through this story in Acts of the eunuch gets saved and he sees water and he's like, can I just get baptized right here? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. So they baptize him right on the spot. So there's examples of it throughout the Bible. Again, I'm not going to go through it all. If you have questions, please come talk to me or any of our leaders or Pastor Dustin. I know he'll talk some more. He talked about it last Sunday a little bit. But again, I just want to encourage you, it's not really about the water, right? We don't fill these tubs up with holy water, right? It's just Brooklyn Park City water, runs through a hose and fills them up. It's not really about the water, but it's about the obedience, the decision that you make to give your life to God. And again, you've given your life to God, but you want to show that publicly. And really, publicly, to the people around you. We're going to have food trucks there. You have to pay for it. It's not free, but you can buy food, have food trucks. It's going to be a big celebration. Whole church family will be there. But also it can be a way for you to declare to yourself that, hey, I experienced this. And if you do sign up for baptisms, you do come to baptisms, write it down, mark it, maybe have someone get some pictures so you can remember. Because I really do believe if you believe that this can be a very big moment for you in your life, again, whether you've come to Christ for the first time or just want to rededicate yourself like Daniel did, encourage you to sign up.